few minutes to probably just do an introduction. My name is Joy Nduhiu. I know I've interacted perhaps with 80% of you because most of you we worked with you, obviously through Dimension Data, either providing a service or providing some sort of product or installation. So with services in Dimension Data. So the aim of this session was basically to take you through the ITSM maturity, how definitely a mature process would look like. We have partnered with Mwasuki Technologies, who are Axelos approved partners on ITIL. So we have our consultant here, who is Joseph Nduhiu. So I'll let him introduce himself at the beginning of his, once I hand over to him. But for now, just to save on time, I thought it would be good to just give an overview. Just some housekeeping rules is, kindly, if you have any questions, please drop it in the chat. We'll be monitoring to make sure that we answer all your questions. We'll have a section after each area for you to ask your questions verbally if you prefer. So during that time, we ask that you just raise your hand and then we'll give you an opportunity. In the meantime, please feel free to drop the question in the chat. And then this is, we plan to have a series of webinars. This is the first one, this March. So we'll have 4 of them in total. So after this, we'll really appreciate your feedback around the content of today's session, as well as what you'd like to see in the next series. So kindly feel free to share your views on that so that we can obviously consider it. So at this point, I'd also want to add that once we've gone through the section, obviously we're going to give you a certificate of participation. So kindly stick with us until the end so that we can also be able to get your views. So at this point, you can see a room full of people. Don't worry, there are all people here to take care of you and make sure this session is successful. I will not go through the introduction for the sake of time, but I will hand over to Joseph to begin the session. Thanks, Joseph.
All right, thank you, Joy. And once again, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. I'm hoping you can see my screen. Just an introduction of who we are. Once again, grateful to Dimension Data for the opportunity to partner together in this webinar. We are a consulting company who support organizations to implement best practices and international standards when it comes to IT service management. So we are accredited by Axelos as a consulting partner in the area of ITIL and PCB in the area of ISO 20000. And basically, that's just a snapshot of who we are. And we are glad to be here to just share some knowledge with you, right? For today's webinar, we're going to cover the topic of maturity and broken the presentation in 3 parts, where we're going to look at the different approaches and stages of ITSM maturity based on just different frameworks. We're going to do a deep dive in a particular practice that is common to most of you in service management, which is incident management. So looking at how does maturity look like in incident management based on different frameworks. And then finally, asking the question, how does maturity contribute to business value? So what are the benefits if you think about improving your maturity for IT service management? So that's going to be our topic for today. As mentioned by Joy, please, if you have any question, just drop it in the chat. I'm happy to take it. All right. So for those who are not familiar with IT service management, this is all about the end-to-end IT service delivery. This is about making sure that the journey from the time we plan services, we build them, we deploy them, we support them, and we make sure they are available to our customers. That's what IT service management is all about. And so that's a common practice. And usually when people talk about IT service management, they usually talk about mostly from the operational side, you know, your service desk, incident change and the like. But in essence, IT service management is the entire life cycle. So from the time we strategize and plan to the point where we design, we build, we deploy, the way we manage our vendors, the way we address our customer needs and make sure their satisfaction is met, and the whole journey of the service until the point we retire and withdraw the service, the whole life cycle. That is what IT service management is all about. And when it comes to ITSM frameworks, there are many frameworks to choose from. For those who are familiar with ITIL has been the leading framework in the world, probably the most mature, and it's currently in its 4th iteration for well over 30 years. But it is not the only framework. For those who go the ISO route, you're familiar with ISO 20000, which is currently on its 3rd iteration, the 2018 version. And then there are many other frameworks that you can pick from. Verizim, Morph, which is an old framework that used to be for Microsoft. FitSM, which is heavily pushed by the European Union. You have Universal Service Management, yet another service management. You have CMMI for services. That's very strong in the American market. COBIT, which is probably the leading framework when it comes to IT governance, and IT, for those who are familiar with enterprise architecture, like TOGAF, the same group, Open Group, also rolls out IT. So these are just the frameworks. All of them, if you look at them closely, they speak in a certain general direction in terms of what is expected when it comes to service management, especially from a process perspective. All right, so let's talk about maturity. So what is maturity? Obviously, if you're thinking about maturity from a human perspective, you'll think about a child becoming a man, which means understanding, experience, know-how, capability, all these are far much better. And so the expectations you'd have on a child to execute some piece of work compared to an adult are very different. And you can say the same from IT service management. So in IT service management, when we talk about maturity, it's actually measuring your ability to deliver outcomes based on the needs of your organization and your customers. So it's all about measuring how best you can meet the needs of your clients in terms of what you have put in place from a service delivery perspective. So when you are maturing in IT service management, what we are talking about here is moving from unpredictability to predictability, which means as an organization, you have defined, this is the way we handle incidents. This is the way we handle requests. And you borrowed from a framework that tells you for you to be at the highest level, then you need to be doing certain activities. And so that's what maturity is all about. So when you hear about maturity in ITSM and you think about maturity models, anytime you hear the word maturity model, it's simply a system that measures improvement in your ability to deliver the outcomes that are expected in service delivery. And usually the kind of outcomes that are in service delivery, customers and businesses are expecting high availability, they're expecting excellence performance, they're expecting high quality, they're expecting compliance with regulation, and obviously they're expecting improved customer satisfaction. So that those are some of the things. So in ITSM maturity, when we talk about capability or maturity levels, it's a characterization of performance. And one of the things that happens is that when organizations choose to go the ITSM maturity way, what they are doing is that they are setting in place a framework for improvement, which means they are looking at their processes, they are looking at their people, they are looking at how they deliver their services, and they are saying, how can we improve this in such a way that we better deliver the outcomes that the organization needs, our stakeholders need, our customers need. And so that's the journey of maturity. Okay, so and usually when you define that you want to implement maturity, then you make a decision that you're going to carry out what we call a maturity assessment. And so the maturity assessment is simply your organization making a decision to assess what is the level of maturity of the ITSM practice within our organization or IT service delivery within our organization. And usually there are three key reasons why organizations carry out maturity assessment of the ITSM framework. One is to identify gaps, okay? So in the sense that you as an organization may believe that you are doing things doing things well, but you would want an outside eye to come in and check, you know, the way we think we are doing well, is it actually the case if a third party comes and compares us with the best practice framework? So when you're talking about gaps, it's simply saying, how are we doing compared to a standard like ISO 20000 or a framework like COBIT or a best practice like ITIL? So when identifying the gaps is simply saying, what are the areas that we need to improve? The other reason why organizations carry out maturity assessment is to set priorities. So when it comes to priorities, what we are looking at is simply determining from the gaps or from the areas of improvement that have been identified, comparing what we are doing and what these best practice frameworks are saying, the things that need to be addressed, what can we prioritize on? So the maturity assessment can help you, can tell you, focus on these areas first because these are the key ones, and then the rest will actually build up on the key areas. So prioritization is key when you carry out an assessment. And finally, think about measuring your progress, okay? So if you want to improve well, then measurement is key. So a maturity assessment of your processes or your ITSM practice can actually help you understand this is where we are as an organization. And when you measure the improvement initiative, you can actually say we've moved from a lower level to a higher level, okay? Now, how are assessments conducted? There are usually three key ways that assessments are conducted, similar to anyone who has undergone an IT audit or an organizational audit. The three key elements that are checked are the level of your documentation, the understanding of the people, the systems that are in use, and general observation of the organization as a whole in terms of service delivery. In terms of documentation review, the assessors will look at your policies, they will look at your process documentation, they look at your procedures, your SOPs, your guidelines, your frameworks, whatever documentation is in place. And even as they check on your documentation, they'll check as well on your systems and records to actually check, are you following what is defined in your policies and process? So they'll check, are your system workflows reflective of the processes you've written? Are you collecting records that enhance your policies and processes in terms of execution and compliance? They would also conduct interviews. They would conduct interviews with leadership. They would conduct interviews with key stakeholders, managers, analysts, engineers, anyone who's involved in the service lifecycle. They may also choose to talk to some of your customers, some of your suppliers, to actually get an outside-in picture in terms of how you're doing. They might visit your NOC, your SOC, your service desk. They might just observe, how do you handle incidents? How do you review changes? So those are some of the things. So a maturity assessment is quite in-depth because it goes deep into understanding your service delivery framework, okay? Now, in terms of approaches for ITSM maturity assessment, some organizations choose the path of self-assessment. In this particular regard, you as an organization would take a framework by yourself and then you would rate yourself based on what you think your particular organization is doing. I've put on the slide deck an example of where an organization can just do this as a form of a survey, where you actually ask the question, are we highly mature or lowly mature? And so with this, you can get a subjective rating based on how you think. So how do you think our service desk is like? How are we doing in self-service? How are we doing in automation? And you can be able to analyze this and then provide for yourself a rating based on an overall score on whether you are high or low. Maybe you might think that self-assessment might be a bit subjective because this is your own opinion, maybe informed by what you think, what you see, what you've heard customers or the business or suppliers say about you. But it's also a method which you can be able to analyze yourselves. You can use common frameworks for maturity that exists. One example, as you can see, is the Gartner IT maturity model. Gartner have a 5-level maturity model that starts from level 0, which is chaotic, rising all the way to level 4, which is value. And as you can see, the whole point of maturity from a Gartner perspective is simply saying, are we moving from a disorganized approach to service management to one that is fully organized and fully focused on delivering value in terms of managing IT as a business? And so maturity in this particular regard is putting in place predictability in terms of how we run IT, and IT is actually seen in the organization as a strategic partner. And in this regard, when you mature using the Gartner IT maturity model, you're actually moving away from tools and operational focus to more of IT driven by strategic thinking. So that's one framework you can think of. There's also ITIL. So ITIL, when they unearthed the ITIL 4 framework back in 2019, following that in 2020, they developed the ITIL 4 maturity model. So the ITIL 4 maturity model is actually looking across the entire service value system. The 5 elements, which are guiding principles, governance, service value chain, practices, and continual improvement, and then providing a rating based on 5 levels: level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, up to level 5. Level 1 is initial, level 2 is managed, level 3 is defined, level 4 is quantitative, and level 5 is maturity. In the ITIL 4 maturity model, they consider the service value system as a holistic framework, which means if you are highly mature in one element, like guiding principles, but you are low in another element, like service value chain, your overall rating can only be as high as your lowest rating. So if you have 4 elements that are maturity level 5, but one element is level 1, your overall maturity is level 1. Because the essence here is the service value system operates as a whole. And so as an organization, if you use the ITIL 4 maturity model to measure yourself, what they are talking about is your improvement journey in IT service delivery is moving from being unpredictable and reactive to go all the way to the point of stability and flexible, where the focus is on optimizing all the elements of the service value system until the point you've reached continual improvement. And you notice that all these particular models we are looking at, they kind of like speak the same language when it comes to levels from 0 to level 5. This is CMMI. For CMMI has 5 levels, actually 6. Then they start with level 0, which is incomplete, which they are simply saying as an organization, you are not yet there. You haven't even started. So whatever you put in place does not meet service delivery best practice. And so that's level 0. But then after that, then you have the common levels, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and level 5, with the highest maturity being optimizing. And you can clearly state here, Level 5, you are at stability and flexibility, and you're focusing on continual improvement. So you move from unstructured to structured to optimized and to improved. And that's the highest level of maturity. If you think about COBIT, where COBIT is, one of the most popular frameworks for governance in IT, they also have 6 levels. Level 0 is incomplete. Level 1, the process achieves its purpose. Level 2, the processes are performed. Level 3, the processes are defined. Level 4, the processes are measured. And then level 5, the processes are achieving their purpose and improvement is pursued. So as you compare all these different models, you notice that at the highest level, you're looking at optimization and continual improvement. This is another framework from Q4IT. They call it the IT Quality Index, and they measure maturity across 6 perspectives. That's business and customer, human assets, services, processes, tools, and appearances. And then they operate on 4 different levels: initial, good, very good, and excellent. And obviously, the higher the quality, the higher the effort and the costs, and the chances of you improving from initial to good are, the effort is low, but if you notice, for you to get to excellent, then the effort becomes very high. And it's the same thing we look at other maturity models. Getting the lowest levels of maturity, so level 0, level 1, level 2, level 3, improving there is usually, the effort required is much less. The challenge becomes once you get to the highest levels, from level 3 to get to level 4 and then to level 5, that's where the hardest effort is needed, because at that point, improving in terms of fine-tuning, optimizing, and continual improvement, those are usually challenges for organizations. Okay, so those are the models, and basically for all those models, what they are looking at the practices. So they are looking at how the particular processes within service management are working, and whether or not they are performed, whether they are defined, whether they are measured, and whether they are optimized and improved. And when you are analyzing these practices, you are looking at them across the 4 dimensions: people, technology, processes, and then partners and suppliers. So those dimensions, together with the external factors, must be considered whenever you are looking at improving your practices. All right. So that is the first phase of the presentation. I hope you are putting in your questions. Joy, any questions so far?
I don't see any questions. Just confirm that everybody is with us. Perhaps we can ask a question ourselves. Does anyone have a question they want to ask verbally? We give them an opportunity. Are we together, everyone? Feel free to use any of the reactions. If it's a thumbs up, if you're together. If you have a question, you can put up your hand. Thanks, Mikali. Hilary. Sharon, thank you. So nobody with a question? Tony, thank you for that. Does anyone have a question? Because we have one, and it comes with a goodie. So anyone who gets our answers correct, you'll have a very beautiful mug sent to you.
Mwikali has a hand up.
Mwikali, thank you. Please talk to us.
Hello, hi, how are you?
I am your good, thanks.
So just a clarification on the ITSM maturity model. You're saying when you do the assessment, if one of the service value system elements are 1, everything else will be, your rating will be 1. So how exactly does that work for an organization, or how do you explain that? Because If I'm at a 5 when it comes to guiding principles, my governance is maybe a 5, my service value chain is a 5, and my practices is a 1. My maturity is 1 by default.
All right. Thank you for that question, Mikali. It's a contentious issue, as you've raised. It's something that organizations are not happy to hear when they hear that the average of 5, 5, 5, 5, and 1 is 1, because they expect it to be 4 or 4 point something. But the way the ITIL 4 framework considers the service value system, it considers it as a whole. And so the essence here is to say that maturity is only as good as your weakest link. And so overall maturity is termed based on where the area in which you are struggling the most. And so if it is the service value chain, that's where your maturity is lowest, then your service value system overall maturity is tagged to your lowest score. And this, in essence, is telling organizations that all the parts of the service value system must work together in tandem. And what it's doing is telling you that you need to work in a holistic way for maturity. And so you need to make sure that everything pulls together towards the journey of maturity. And so your guiding principles should be not operating in a silo separated from governance. Your practices should be feeding directly into your service value chain, and so on and so forth. So you need to have a holistic manner in which you look at maturity across the whole organization. And that's why for the service value system, you're only as good as your weakest link. And what it does, and one of the key messages around maturity models, is that improvement means make sure you improve everything. What's the point of you improving change management to a point where change management is so good, but it impacts on your service desk, or impacts on your release and deployment, or impacts on your configuration management? So the essence here is that practices will not improve by themselves. You have to think of everything in a holistic manner. And that's what the service value system was designed for. It was meant to break the silo thinking that happens in IT, where we say, these are our processes, we work on them, we improve them by themselves, and we don't care about what is happening upstream or downstream. So that holistic, in maturity models, we think about things from a holistic way, that everything must work together, everything must pull together, so that at the end of the day, we get full value across the service value system.
Thank you, Joseph. I think for me, when I hear that, it's sort of a tricky way to make you actually sort out your weakest points. As opposed, most people, if that was the case, you just get 4 points, they'll just live with it and not handle where they're having an issue. So I think that is pretty good. We have Ben. Yeah. I saw Ben's hand up. Ben, you can go ahead.
Okay, morning. I had a question about the first slide there that you presented about the issue of the framework that I used to measure the maturity. And I saw, just go back. Yeah, that one. I saw you included the ISO 20,000. I guess also ISO 27,000 is also good for that case.
All right, Ben. Yes, good question. Definitely. ISO 27001 is the international standard for information security management systems. And that can work in a similar manner in terms of enhancing the maturity of your IT service management framework. In fact, if you look at the structure of, ISO standards, you'll notice that they adopt a lot from, the Plan, Do, Check Act, where they have a clause around measurement, they have a clause around continual improvement. And so the whole point is that when you adopt an ISO standard like ISO 27001, it's obvious you'll have to define processes and approaches, and then you'll have to measure them, and you'll have to have improvement across, especially the security controls you have in place. And if you look at the ISO 27001 controls, you'll find things like incident management, you'll find things like change management, you'll find things like supplier management, and all these play a role in terms of, if you implement the controls effectively, that's actually the journey of maturity. Usually you'll find your ISO auditors, like your ISO 27001 auditor, if they come and find that you haven't defined policies or processes, part of their findings will tell you to define them. If they find you're not measuring, they will ask you to measure. They'll come and check what has improved in your ISMS from the last time a last audit was done, because they'll be looking at improvement. So yes, even as you look at maturity, adopting ISO standards will actually force you to improve your IT service management practices.
Okay, thanks. Hoping you've been answered satisfactorily. Feel free to ask follow-up questions, but for now, I would want us to move to the next section, because time is not with us. I'm hoping you'll be okay if we extend a little bit for 10 minutes at the end.
All right.
Go on.
All right, so let's look at an example. I've picked incident management, which is very familiar to, I believe, all of us in IT service management. So anytime we have downtime or we have performance degradation, or we're not able to access our systems or our data, then usually we have an incident. And so we must respond quickly to resolve this incident and return things to normal and to meet the needs of the business and to ensure customer satisfaction. So that's the whole point of incident management. So let's look at what some of the frameworks will talk about in terms of what are the maturity levels when it comes to incident management. So if you look at the ITIL4 maturity model, what they call level 2 is usually telling you that you detect incidents immediately. Stakeholders know how to report incidents. Incidents are resolved quickly and resolved.
Kindly mute.
All right. So that's what is expected at a level 2 organization. All right. When you become a level 3 organization, ITIL expects that you've defined the approach to incident management. Now, this is now where the definition comes in, where you've defined your process or your policy or your procedures for handling of incidents. And within those procedures, you've clearly defined the responsibilities. So who has the responsibility for detecting, who has the responsibility for recording, who has the responsibility for assigning, who has the responsibility for communicating, and who has the responsibility for resolving. So those are some of the things that are expected when you define your framework, right? At level 3, of course, the expectation is that you've defined the competencies required for performing incident management. You have a skills framework that clearly states these are the competencies and capabilities required when you are handling incident management. The ITIL4 framework also introduces the concepts of value streams. And so the expectation is that your incident detection, your incident resolution activities are actually well integrated with your value stream, which is your journey for providing services or restoring services. Also, at level 3, if you have third-party incidents, because a lot of us operate in environments where we have depended on dimension data or any other partner to provide us with cloud services, connectivity, security solutions, and the like. If we have an issue with those ones, then we are also detecting and reporting them. Level 3 also expects that you have standardized your resolution approach, and wherever you have automation, you've implemented it. Competencies for incident resolution are also defined. Third-party dependencies when it comes to incident resolution are identified, and then having an integrated information system. Here, what we are talking about is that as an organization, for you to be at level 3, then you need an integrated information system. This is the kind where when you log incidents, you can relate them with configuration items, you can relate them with problems, you can relate them with changes, and any other information that is relevant within the service management system. At level 4, now this is where you expect that the approach for incident management has been integrated with other standards and approaches within the organization, which means incident management is not standalone. It complies with the organization's policies and standards. So if the organization complies with ISO 27001, incident management approach should be aligned with it, right? Then obviously measurement is key in this area. So you can notice that the effectiveness of the approach and the effectiveness of incident resolution both are measured and reported. So you're not just checking whether or not you are resolving incidents on time. You're also measuring whether incident management is working effectively. Is communication working effectively? Is escalation working effectively? Is detection working effectively? So those are the kind of things that are expected at level 4, together with obviously optimization and integration into value streams for your resolution activities. And then at the highest level of incident management, this is where we are saying the incident management approach is regularly reviewed and continually improved. So there has to be continual improvement in your approach. There has to be continual improvement in detection. There has to be continual improvement in resolution. So you can see the progression for maturity if you compare it with the ITIL4 framework. Let's consider another framework like COBIT. COBIT will tell you at level 3, you will need to have defined your classification schemes and models for incidents and service requests. So for COBIT, it combines the handling of service requests and incidents together. But key thing to understand is that at level 3, the expectation is that you have defined. So there is you have a framework or a policy or a process that actually defines how do we classify, how do we prioritize, how do we handle different types of incidents, how do we escalate, and where is our knowledge. That's level 3. If you are a level 2,
are you asking a question? Or you want to mute for us, kindly?
So,
Peter, kindly mute.
At level 2, what you're looking at is in COBIT, you must record, classify, and prioritize your incidents. So the expectation here is that a level 2 organization will be logging everything, they'll be classifying, and they will be prioritizing. So this is level 2 capability where you're actually doing the work. Level 3 is all about defining an approach. And at level 3, you want to make sure that you have some level of automation. So you've defined models in advance, and where approvals are required, you've also put those in place, right? If you are a level 2 in COBIT, you're looking at investigating, diagnosing, and allocating incidents. So this is the whole point of handling an incident, including escalation from a hierarchical perspective or from a functional perspective are in place. That is level 2 for COBIT. And then resolution and closure is also level 2 in COBIT. So for COBIT, you notice that level 2 is all about the actual operational aspects of incident management, all the way from detecting assignment, resolution, closing are all level 2. Having an approach gets you to level 3. Reporting has a mixture of level 2 for tracking of the assignments and resolution, level 3, the actual incident reports, level 4, analysis and trends, and level 5, continual improvement. So in terms of tracking, COBIT is actually telling you your maturity moves from tracking the actual individual incident to now moving towards generation of reports, then analytics and trending, and then continual improvement as moving from level 2 all the way to level 5. Let's pick another framework like CMMI. For CMMI, level 1, record and resolve incidents. Level 2, have an approach in place and then communicate your incidents. At level 3, use a system, okay? So this system is where you log, where you track, where you escalate, where you update to closure, and where you get your data for analytics. That's at level 3. So basically, what's the message from comparing all these different frameworks? Maturity is all about a continual improvement mindset. It's all about saying, where are we as an organization? So getting a baseline. What are the things we need to be doing to get us to the next level that we want to be? And then after that time period has passed, coming back to check, have we implemented the things that take us to the next level of maturity? And have we seen results? So you have to remember that we are not just implementing the elements of maturity for the sake. We're actually asking the question, is our improvement actually leading to the customer saying, hey, incident management is better. Hey, our customers are happier. Hey, we have better quality data to investigate. Hey, we are able to resolve, to detect and resolve incidents faster. The whole point of maturity should actually lead you to improve your practice in such a way that there is business value to the organization. So that's the whole point of having a continual improvement mindset. And that's where the benefits come into play, all right? So you must, anytime you are going through maturity assessment or you're asking yourself, how do we improve maturity? You must ask yourself from the basis of, what does maturity contribute to our organization? And you can think about it in two perspectives. You can think about it from internal or external. Internal, as an organization, you might be wanting maturity from a cost management purpose. So you might want to say, we are spending too much money on repairs. So how can maturity help us to manage our IT infrastructure better so that we have less repairs, so that we invest in better infrastructure? So that's an opportunity for cost. Or we are spending too much time handling incidents, and the longer we spend, the more it is as a cost to an organization. So you can think about the reasons we need to mature are from a cost perspective. You can think about effectiveness, efficiency, and operational excellence as well. So if we are going to implement a maturity improvement initiative, then as an organization, what we are promising the people who consume our services or depend on our services is that from maturity, we will be more efficient in how we work. Our work will be more effective from a quality perspective, and it will become excellent. We'll be better in how we detect, we'll be better in how we report, we'll be better in how we resolve, we'll be better in the availability and capacity of our services. Also, think about external perspective as an organization. You also want to make sure that if we improve in maturity, it directly leads to improved customer experience. So we can be able to come back and measure, has our customer experience improved following the implementation of our maturity improvement initiative? You can think also from a compliance perspective. If auditors are constantly coming to us and finding us with negative findings, based on how we operate our IT services, then we can use a maturity improvement framework to actually help us become better from a compliance perspective. Obviously, revenue improvement is key for us, and also risk management. If we are heavily exposed from risks perspective, then from a risk mitigation, we can also use a maturity improvement initiative to actually bolster our risk management framework. So if you as an organization commit to improving your ITSM maturity, what are some of the benefits you can get as an organization, especially if you benchmark with a framework that is well known internationally? Your service management capabilities improve. And capabilities here, we are talking about your processes, your people, and the systems that you use can improve whenever you benchmark them against a well-known framework or standard. You also improve your efficiency. And efficiency here is that you do things better at a more cost-effective manner. And so efficiency is something you can do. Customer satisfaction is something you can gain highly by improving your maturity. You can standardize your processes so that different teams work following a standardized processes. If you're working with partners and suppliers, you can introduce them to your standardized processes because you have adopted a maturity framework. Better risk management is key for us, especially when it comes to the compliance elements and in terms of standardization. You can improve your communication and collaboration through adopting a best practice framework and maturing along it. And obviously, as an organization, your competitiveness is increased because your service, so long as your service delivery is better, people actually talk about you and people actually prefer you, especially if you communicate effectively and if you handle the service delivery processes in a professional manner. Lastly, key things to understand before carrying out a maturity assessment. First of all, very important, understand your rationale. Don't just conduct a maturity assessment just so that we say we are level 3 or level 4 or level 5. Actually, understand your rationale in terms of what is the business benefit we are looking for. Is it compliance? Is it customer satisfaction? Is it operational excellence? Make sure you understand what it is we are looking for as an organization. Then set your scope. In terms of setting your scope, don't try to chew everything all at once. You can take one value stream or one service or one process and start with that and then build on that. So don't try to improve all things, all your processes, all your people, all at the same time. It's better if you are starting out the journey of maturity assessment. From an improvement perspective, it's better to start with a small scope, enhance it, then holistically build on that improvement so that all the improvements work together, right? Then choose the right framework. Ask yourself what is relevant to our organization. If our organization adopts IT, go for it. If your organization has gone the ISO route, go for it. If your organization, from a governance perspective, has gone the COBIT way, just choose the framework that is appropriate to you. Then it's very important that you communicate your improvement intention to all key stakeholders, okay? Most people, when they hear that we are being assessed or we are being audited, their first reaction is always negative. It's always about hiding. It's always about just showing the things that work, but hiding the things that don't work. And so when you do a maturity assessment, it's better as an organization to be open towards saying, we are doing this from an improvement perspective. And so let's show the truth in terms of our service delivery model. Let's show the truth from our processes. Let's show the truth from our systems, from our records, from our people, so that we find out where we need to improve. And so a maturity assessment should not be considered as a punitive measure where we are going to punish people if your maturity is low. No, let's ask the question. We are doing a maturity assessment to improve so that we deliver value to our customers, okay? So focus on value as an organization. Make sure you understand The reason we are maturing is so that we deliver value to the business and to our customers, and make sure anytime you're making an improvement, ask yourself, how does it tie into the business value you're looking for? And finally, think about the company culture, all right? If your company culture is not one that embraces openness, embraces improvement, embraces the need that we can get better, then you might want to consider how you can address that through an organizational change program so that people understand the value for maturity and understand that let's be open about the current state of our maturity and how we can get better as an organization.
Good job. Thank you, Joseph. That was well articulated and put in a very simple way. So I would want, thank you, Charles. He agrees. Everybody else, I hope you do agree. At this point, I am very sorry we are 1 minute past the time allocated for this. I would want to give you an opportunity, even 5 minutes, to ask any question that you may have. Does anyone have a question? Thanks, Mikali. Anyone with a question? Joseph, do you have a question for your people? Agnes, your hand is up.
Oh, sorry, I was trying.
All right. Thanks, Philip. Ben, go ahead.
Okay, I had a question in regard to, I know for us to have a mature system, a maturity assessment clear on, we need a system. So I wanted Joseph to, from his own perspective, I know there are tools in the market to support the ITSM run efficiently in the organization. So maybe he can give from his own experience which tools we could advise on which one is able to perform that better.
All right. Yes, Ben, thank you for that. You're putting me in the spot in terms of recommending tools. So I think what I would say is twofold. One is anytime you're selecting an ITSM tool, you have to ask yourself, basically, what are you trying to achieve with that tool? Or what is that tool going to take you to the next level, right? Because as one of my experiences is that you might be an organization that needs a Pro Box, but you buy a Mercedes. And then you end up finding that what you need the tool for, you're only using like 20-30% of the capability, and another 70 you paid for and you're not using. And so I always ask the question that you have to be very clear when you're specifying your requirements to your vendor, and you only get that which is relevant for you, and then add the capabilities as you go on your maturity journey. And so don't try to buy the whole suit. First, understand what practices are we doing as an organization? Can we get those capabilities first, mature on them, and then add capabilities as we go forward? Now, in terms of the best in the market, obviously, I like using, and I think I can show you something you can do for yourself. Let me just show you. Just sharing my screen.
Apologies, guys. We've gone over, but we'll not go beyond another 10 minutes, I promise. I think this is a good question that needs to be answered.
Yeah, I'm just pulling.
In the meantime, Joseph, do you have a question for your participants so that we don't remain with these marks? You're the person who was taking them through at least one question.
Let me just show them this, and then I'll ask them one question.
No problem.
All right. So this is one of the things you can use when you're making a decision on a service management system that is good, I usually refer people to use Gartner. If you just Google Gartner Magic Quadrant for IT service management, usually in the images that will come out, you'll see something like this that has different brands. Gartner does a great job of analyzing some of the best brands in the market. So you will see in the top quadrangle where you have leaders like ServiceNow, BMC, Ivanti, Atlassian, and others. So basically what Gartner is useful for, can be useful for you as an organization to ask yourself, where are we in our maturity journey? And then actually make a choice based on what works for you, okay? So like I said before, do not buy a tool where you'll only end up using 30% of the capabilities and waste a further 70, because you will probably find that the tools that are in the highest quadrangle, they have so many capabilities, and if your service management practice has not matured, you'll not be able to maximize on those, and you'll end up costing your organization because you've invested in something that was over and above what you needed. You need a pickup, but you buy a combined harvester. So you're literally, it moves and it carries things, but you are not using the capability that is there. So that's something to think about. So usually I do not tell you you should choose a system. I always ask you the question, where are you in your maturity journey? If you are at the highest level of maturity, then choose the best tools in the market. If you're not, choose a starter tool that enables you to execute your processes for where you are. And then as you mature, then you can always evolve. Hope I've answered your question, Ben.
Good answer, Ben?
Okay, based on the same, because I know when you're trying to, based on the analogy that you gave us, you know, you may buy now a pickup and say that you're carrying the full capacity. So once you do your maturity assessment, you say now I'm the full capacity, but only that you don't know that in the future you need other loads, or you're comparing yourself with someone who has the energy of the harvester. So I don't know how, that's a tricky, because I may measure myself and say I'm mature, but it's only because I'm carrying the load of a pickup. But in real sense, I need to, if I'm someone who's measuring himself with a truck, is carrying only a half, but in essence, he's carrying more than the pickup. So I don't know how, because that's a tricky approach. That so I don't know what's your comment on that.
Yeah, so the key thing is you have to be very clear in terms of your requirements. And that's why I came back to that first. You have to be clear in terms of what are you expecting now and what is your roadmap. Because the essence here is that when you're investing in an ITSM platform, obviously you are not buying it and saying you will get rid of it next year. Usually an investment that you expect an ROI, for 3, 4, 5 years. So the expectation is, as you are defining your requirements, as an organization, you should be able to state to the vendor that this is where I am now and this is where I want to be. So give me the capabilities that I need for where I am and where I want to be. Some vendors would rightly advise you that we can, some capabilities will only be available on that they can turn on when you need it. So like you'll find like they'll give you levels and be like, okay, for where you are now, we will give you these capabilities. When you are ready to move to the next level, the only thing you need to do is to turn on, especially for cloud platforms. It will not require like a rejigging of your entire TSM system. And so it's very important for you to say, this is where I am now in terms of my process maturity, and then advise your vendor to be like, get me these capabilities plus these others that I'm looking at adding in the next 1 year or so. And then have it in your roadmap that at a certain point, 2 years, 3 years down the line, we will want to activate other capabilities down the road. So by so doing, you save yourself like license cost as opposed to paying for them upfront. Pay for them when you're ready to use them. But you are right, it's usually a tricky thing And sometimes for some organizations who are investing in an ITSM solution, you might want to add, to invest in a consultant to help you clarify your requirement so that by the time you're engaging the vendor here, you have given them a very clear roadmap of where you are and where you want to be, so that they only give you the capabilities that you need for your need at that point. Hope I've answered, Ben.
Yes, that is fine. Thank you for that.
All right.
Maybe the final one is that you see, you recommended that we do it from external, rather the external eye view, so that you avoid biasness.
Yes.
So, are there firms, or rather people who have that do that maturity assessment? Because I know if you definitely call your vendor to do the assessment, definitely is going to give you a high rank.
Yeah, you're right. So you need to be on the lookout for consulting companies that do process consulting. Those are the kind of organizations you definitely want to be looking for, because they are independent of vendor and they can work with you so that you work with the best. So yes, they are consulting. You need to find the consulting organizations. Those ones can assist you on that.
But when you say vendors, it also depends. Are they the same vendors who help you implement those processes? Because then again, they have no reason to be biased.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
So
There's
I saw
another
Lucy.
question.
Yeah, Lucy, you had your hand up.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. You talked about automation in regards to achieving the maturity. To what extent should automation be done?
All right. Thank you, Lucy. That's a good question. Now, the example that we were looking at was around the area of incident management. And so if you're looking at automation, for the organizations that I've seen doing this effectively, is that you, in the kind of monitoring systems for your IT that you invest in, can actually be integrated with your ITSM solution, such that if you have an incident, then the incident record is automatically generated. And so you don't have that situation where the detection, verification before logging is taking place. That actually means that your incident record is actually populated with actual incidents that have been detected. One of the things that happens in IT sometimes is that IT guys are superheroes. They will see an incident and they will fix it and keep quiet. So it never appears in the incident record. Nobody. Yes. So and so when you implement automation, what you're doing is you're closing that loop, because the essence here is that record of the incident is actually valuable knowledge that should be useful for us for implementation. So you can actually implement automation around incident detection and logging, and then you can even go further towards incident resolution, because some of the modern IT monitoring solutions can actually go ahead and do some sort of automated healing in such a way, like restarting an instance or a port or reconfiguration, and then coming back and updating the incident record to actually show that this is what has happened. And so with automation, what you're looking at is that your particular tools or systems are actually populating your incident records and providing with you with that knowledge that is necessary for you to actually identify opportunities for improvement. So that's where you're looking at. But with automation, there is no limit to automation. I mean, we are in the age of AI, so you can literally automate many things across the service management lifecycle. So that's something to think about. Hope I've answered well, Lucy.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that.
All right.
Thanks. I see a couple of hands up, but I can also see the time is really gone. So, and we want to answer all your questions. So kindly send us an email with your questions, and Joseph will make sure that your questions are fully answered. Secondly is we're going to be sending out a feedback form. Kindly fill it in for us, and also of interest would be what you want to see in the next series, which will be around May. We really appreciate your feedback around that so that we also pick something that aligns to what you want to see. So Carol Grace, please feel free to share your questions even after the session, and we'll be able to pick it up and answer it for you. I know time has really gone, so I think at this point, if there is nothing else, did I miss to mention anything, Kate? No. Okay. So I believe at this point, then we can probably just end the session so we can give you back the rest of your day. Thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate also the participation. I know we do have some gifts, so I'll pick the people who have participated today to get those gifts. So you're in luck. So we'll just note down the 3 people, and then we'll see you in the next session. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.